Good evening and welcome. My name is Bruce Campbell, and I'm the director of the Latino Latin American Studies program here at St. John's University, College of St. Benedict. Tonight's event is the second in our spring 2018 event series on immigrant voices and conversations about justice, a series of 3 public conversations with representatives of the Asamblea de derechos civiles, or Assembly for Civil Rights, a faith-based immigrant empowerment organization here in Minnesota. Following this evening's conversation about economic justice, we will hold a third event on March 13 to discuss immigrants' participation in and contributions to the public arena. The underlying theme of these conversations is justice, and the premise of the series is that the fraught national conversation about immigration is frequently not a conversation in which immigrants have a voice. While there is much heated talk about immigrants, in which immigrants are an object of reference, there is considerably less public talk in which immigrants are a party to the discussion. Immigrants, in other words, are too often object instead of actor, problem instead of person, divisive topic rather than conversational partner. In any conversation about justice, it matters who speaks and how we listen. Argentine philosopher, historian, and theologian Enrique Dussel argues that a conversation about what is right, about what is just, must open to the voices of the excluded, to hear and acknowledge their lived material circumstances. Injustice, Dussel writes, is lived as pain. Dussel would likely agree with the reminder from American philosopher and activist Cornel West about how we listen and respond to injustice. Quote, "Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public." With this in mind, I'm very honored to introduce to you tonight 4 panelists from the Asamblea de derechos civiles who will speak about the organization's work on issues of economic justice for the immigrant community. We have with us here tonight Maria Elena Gutierrez, a community organizer for Asamblea and a proud mom of a St. Ben's student. Ned Moore, development director for Asamblea. Sebastian Rivera, community organizer. And Robert St. Mary, a board member. Please join me in a warm welcome.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. How's everyone doing tonight? Good? You sure? You sound tired. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. All right, excellent. Just out of curiosity, how many folks were here for our previous conversation last month around immigration? Okay, great. And then how many are new to Asamblea? Okay, great. That helps me monitor the time. So it's an honor to be here. My name is Ned Moore. I'm the development director for Asamblea. I live in South Minneapolis, and I belong to Living Table United Church of Christ. I have been in the organization for over 10 years. I'm in it because of my faith. I'm in it because of my values. And I'm in it to honor my ancestors. As someone who grew up, I was fortunate to be taught the stories and the struggles of my ancestors when they came to the United States. I find that a lot of the anti-immigrant rhetoric that I hear in the political debate and in the media is a betrayal and an insult to my own heritage and my immigrant family members that came before me. And so I'm here to honor them by struggling side by side today with those who are part of a struggle for a better life as immigrants in this country. Asamblea de derechos civiles, Assembly for Civil Rights. We are a statewide faith-based organization founded in 2006. We work primarily in congregations, doing community organizing to build power and develop leaders from the communities that are on the front line of the struggle for social and economic justice. We do this through grassroots community organizing, through leadership development so that people can find their voice within the political process and systems that are affecting them. And we have a number of campaigns. So whether that's the immigration campaign, whether that's our Dream 2050 campaign to organize the new American majority, who are primarily immigrants and people of color, who will be a majority by 2015, we're looking to organize voters in a nonpartisan way to be able to use the electoral process to advance the issues that we care about. Tonight, you're also going to hear a lot about housing. Affordable housing is another major campaign that our organization takes on. Immigration is not the only system in which our brothers and sisters are under attack. We also see a lot of abuse and injustice in the neighborhoods where Latinos and other immigrant communities live. So we'll be talking a lot about housing today. As people of faith, I think we're living in this moment of a profound contradiction. We've heard the rise in a politics of exclusion, an economics of exclusion, at the same time that we're taught that a central tenet to our faith is loving our neighbor as ourselves, that we are all made in the image and likeness of God. And yet we practice that faith under an economic system that often preaches competition, individualism, everyone for themselves, where there's winners and losers, and you should just do everything you can to be a winner, and don't worry about the losers. But there's this age-old question, this call, including in the time of Jesus, where we're told to love our neighbor as ourselves. And I think as old as that calling has been, there's also this question as to okay, yeah, but really, who's my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? We have up here a reflection from Pope Francis that I wanted to share just to kind of ground us in the conversation tonight. The question that the lawyer asked Jesus in the Gospel of Luke echoes in our ears today. Who is my neighbor? Who is that other who we are to love as we love ourselves? Maybe the questioner expects a comfortable response in order to carry on with his life. My relatives, my compatriots, my co-religionists. Maybe he wants Jesus to excuse us from the obligation of loving pagans or foreigners who at that time were considered unclean. This man wants a clear rule that allows him to classify others as neighbor and non-neighbor, as those who can become neighbors and those who cannot become neighbors. Professor John Powell, who used to be at the University of Minnesota, now I believe is out at UC Berkeley, talks about this in another way. He talks about the circle of human concern, which is another way to look at this concept of love of neighbor. When you're at the center of human concern, there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense that your life matters, that you deserve to share in the abundance of this economic system. When people are at the center of human concern, laws and institutions are made to benefit you. The system generally works for you. And that's consistent with, I think, the vision and values of our faith and of Asamblea, is to work for a world where we're all at that center of human concern, where no one is on the margins and no one is outside of that circle. But we know in the real world it's not like that. We know in our political debates, we know in institutional practices, that there's this constant effort to push people to the margins, to say you don't belong at that center of human concern. Your belonging here in this neighborhood, in this community, in this country, is conditional, or it's contested, where you're valued only for what you can produce. What's the benefit, what's the economic value of your labor that the system can extract from you, from your labor, from what you pay in rent? And then we're also seeing now in our debate this idea of that people are outside of the circle. People are being told they don't belong. People being told that they're disposable. And that others have a right to get rid of you. And this is a scary place. And this is a place where a lot of our undocumented brothers and sisters find themselves in and day out. This is a place where genocide happens. This is a place where displacement happens. Deportation and state violence. So under our economic system, people are being pushed to the margins, and our neighbors' belonging is being contested. Whether they're immigrants, people of color, renters, manufactured homeowners, or the poor. So our challenge and our work before us is to work as a society and people of faith to expand the circle of human belonging and concern so all may share in God's abundance. We hear a lot in economics about scarcity, but we know that God has provided to us abundantly. And so with that, I just want to leave you just to kind of frame you with some of those basic callings of our faith and with the words of Oscar Romero, who says, "What marks the genuine church is the word, burning like the word of the prophets, proclaims and accuses, proclaims to the people God's wonders to be believed and venerated, and accuses of sin those who oppose God's reign, so that they may tear that sin out of their hearts, out of their societies, out of their laws, out of the structures that oppress, that imprison, that violate the rights of God and humanity." Before we continue with our panel, I'm going to share a video. It's about a 10-minute video.
Nos están quitando las tierras donde hay casas económicas como los parques de casas.
That gets into some of these economic justice issues around housing. And then we'll have some discussion from there.
Y no hay.
Uh-oh.
You sure? So it's not embedded in the slideshow? The tricky show is not the slide.
Podamos vivir si no permite el gobierno o algo.
We are having some technical difficulties. You know what? Let's skip the video because a lot of what the video talks about, we've got folks that are living it. So I think in the interest of time, maybe we can see if there's a technical fix while Maria Elena is presenting. But just want to introduce you to Maria Elena, who's going to talk more about some of the work in Cold Spring.
Okay, my name is Maria Elena Gutierrez. I am a St. Cloud co-founder in Asamblea de Derechos Civiles, and I was 5 years president of this organization. Right now, I am one of the staff. I am organizing, and since we start this organization, the first homes or owners that came to our organization was the neighbors of Sherwood Manor. They were from St. Cloud, and the residents there were having problems with the manager because of the kids playing outside. People visit then their home because the residents have parties outside, And many times the manager sent the police to the people, to the residents. So many of these residents were from Asia, Latin America, and some people from the United States. But the people who were called to the office, there were just the Latino and the Asia people. They said the kids cannot play outside. They cannot bring families to visit them. They cannot have parties outside. Otherwise, the police is gonna be there. So they came with us. We talked with the neighbors. Many neighbors came with us, to us, and we start organized there. So what we did is identify the problems that they feel like the manager was accused then, and there was not true, because the kids is not that the kids cannot stay inside the home all day, so they has to go outside. So we talked with the manager, the person in charge of the park, and at the end they decide that the manager has to be take away everything that she was saying and leave the people alone, and she has to respect them, because she was doing discrimination, because this was used for the Latino people and the Asian people. So the most recently thing that is happening is in Tom's H Park in Cold Spring. This mobile home park, we started organizing last year there, because the rent going up twice in 1 year. They were feeling afraid, because the police was around many times, and one day, like 3 to 7 or 8 times a day, just on the mobile home park. They said, and I saw that the park is very old. We talked with the owner by phone, and he said that the park is new. But what we see is that the park is thank you. It's okay. I can just put it. Yeah, I can. Yeah. So those pictures I take on the summer, last summer, before the winter come. And this is what is there. If you see, it's old. So nothing is new. And this we talk before. Before we take the pictures, we talk with him, and the shelter was not open. It's locked. The kids cannot play outside. They cannot have like a small pool or something to the kids can play outside when it's the summer. And with that, we start a residents association. And we talk with the mayor, the Cold Spring mayor, and we did the human rights to the neighbor. We did on St. Boniface Church. And we have a lot of meetings in their homes. We see that they said, the neighbor said that there is many things, all things that are being accumulated that like it seems like garbage, but there is all things that are there, but it's not because they not clean, because we went inside the homes. The homes inside are clean, but outside is many things accumulate because they don't clean the park. They don't bring dumpsters to put the old things. So, and that has been for many years. So they want to clean the park, but they are not provided things. But they are paying the bills high, and they are paying the water and other things that are not. They are paying the land, the rent land, but that not include the water, is not include the drain, anything like that. So the bills, it can come from $100 to $300. And they said that it's very hard to live there. So we are trying to continue this summer. As soon as the winter go away, we are trying to go back and start working with them, because I see it's very difficult to live there. And now I'm going to present Bob, that is going to talk about the taxes.
We had numbers on here. My name is Robert St. Marie. I'm a member of the board with the Asamblea, or Assembly for Civil Rights. I don't speak Spanish. I have a problem with pronunciation on some of these things. My information is relating to the unfair treatment in terms of the tax system in this country. Over the years, the undocumented have been paying considerably more taxes than a U.S. citizen because of the earned income credit. When it comes to the earned income credit, we've got some figures that indicate, like for $25,000, a couple with one child is penalized to the tune of $2,281. This was as of 2016. The figures might be off by $1 or $2 or $5 maybe presently. If they have two children at $25,000 income, their penalty that they're paying is a $4,133 figure. For three children, they're paying in the neighborhood of $4,800 that they're not getting back in terms of refunds, because if either parent is undocumented, the tax system does not allow for an earned income credit to be used by that couple. A second form of inequality there is the fact that they're paying Social Security and Medicare taxes. They're always being taken out of their paychecks. A $25,000 income pays $1,912 a year in Social Security and Medicare taxes, which they'll never see a benefit for. A $40,000 income pays $3,060. Again, they're never going to see a benefit for any of that payment. And the thing that is even a little more disturbing is the fact that under the new tax law, it's not only the earned income credit, but the child tax credit is no longer going to be available to anybody that has either parent undocumented. And that is been increased from $1,000 to $2,000. But there's a stipulation in that tax law that says they have to have they take 15% of your income, and if that does not hit that limit, you cannot make full use of that tax credit, the child tax credit. So if you're making $41,000 and you have 3 children, you can make full use of the child tax credit. But in order to make full use of the child tax credit with 4 children, you have to have approximately a $54,000 figure. 5 children, you have to be at $67,000 before you get the full benefit of that child tax credit. So basically what they're saying is low-income people don't deserve refunds or credits that high-income people are allowed. And basically, if you're undocumented or have one undocumented parent on that form, they are not allowed the earned income credit and have never been allowed it as long as I can remember. But next year, they're not going to be allowed the child tax credit either. And that is, in my estimation, an absolute wrong. That system, I think, needs change. And I would hope if you know of people that have the ability to vote, that you work on some kind of a situation where you try to have them work towards a fair tax system. Yes, I think that's it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian Rivera. I'm a community organizer for Asamblea de derechos civiles. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about our housing campaign. I organize in the Brooklyns, in the northwest suburbs, near the cities, and the Brooklyns, it's the Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. How many of you know where that is? Okay, so most of you know where that is. Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center are 2 very interesting cities because Brooklyn Park has 52 to 53% majority people of color living there, and then Brooklyn Center has about 70% majority people of color living in that city. So that means that the systems that are in place most of the time impact negatively these communities, these large communities, right? But as organizers, a big question that, as grassroots organizers, a big question that we often ask ourselves is, who's benefiting, right? We're talking about economics, and we can be talking about money or even housing. Who's benefiting out of these situations? And so I'll give you guys a quick example. There is a light rail line that is going to be extended up to Brooklyn Park that's starting from the cities that connects all the way down to Bloomington. And so this will probably bring a big economic boom to the area because of the line will bring more people and it'll help jobs. But at the same time, again, asking ourselves who's benefiting out of this. Our communities are most likely going to be displaced because of the amount of apartment buildings that are near the line. The rents will go up, and to an extent that people won't be able to afford. Therefore, they'll be displaced and will probably be pushed out farther out from the cities where there are less resources, and especially if you're an immigrant or an undocumented immigrant. Language at times might be a barrier, or even having a car and driving is a huge barrier for a lot of us that don't have licenses. Therefore, when the city officials or big business owners are talking about this blue line coming in and really expanding the economic growth of the area, they're not taking our communities in consideration. So because we've realized that our community is often not taken in consideration, or it's not, or doesn't have any power, we've decided to start our campaign, our housing campaign, there in the Brooklyns, and we first started it by door knocking roughly about 5,000 to 7,000 homes with small groups. And while we were door knocking, we found that most people were paying about $900 to $1,200 for a one-bedroom apartment. And these one-bedroom apartments often will have mice, rats, damages will not be repaired. Recently, I went door knocking 2 weeks after Christmas, and there was a whole section of a building that didn't have heat. So they lost heat on December 25th, and 3 weeks after that, they still didn't have heat. Therefore, people were opening their ovens and kind of cranking it all the way up to heat up the house, but this brings a staggering electric bill to these communities that are already on their last really dollars. They're stretching these dollars very thin. We also know that more than 40% of residents in Brooklyn Park are more than 50% cost burden. So that means that more than 50% of their income goes just to pay their housing. So we know that these communities are really at risk, and there is not a lot of work other than us pushing it forward. So after we got door knocking, and we had some community forums inviting the community out to kind of let us know what were their issues, what were they encountering day by day. We saw that towing became a huge problem. A lot of landlords are targeting these families by towing their cars at night. At times, if you might not have a parking permit, or you might have someone over or something like that. By towing a few cars a month, people will have to pay about $290 to $300 to get their car out of their impound. That's money that's not going into your rent. Therefore, that family cannot pay it. Therefore, they're going to be displaced and will have to go live somewhere else. And it's a tactic that works very well. So we brought forward a petition to the city of Brooklyn Park to kind of hold accountable the city for letting this abuse go for so long, and two, to ask them to actually stop it or do something to help it. And the first thing that we realized is that the system was compliant. We had a lot of the inspectors, well, actually one of the inspectors even used to work for the developer company that in the building that he inspects. So therefore, they used to be, they used to work for that company and used to pass the inspection with flying colors. And at the same time, we will go into that building and see bed bugs on the carpets outside, on the hallways. We'll see rats about this big that kind of look like cats, but they're actually rats. And we encounter these families that are paying $1,200 with these conditions, And so what we decided to do was to kind of compile all of this information that we've gathered from the community and the things that we know that could help really impact the future of the community in housing. And we presented a civil rights blueprint to the City of Brooklyn Park and the City of Brooklyn Center. That was kind of a document, kind of hefty document with legislation proposed in there, and also all of this information that we gather. And out of that, there were 4 ordinances that were put in this blueprint, but so far one of them has passed. So it was introduced, it was voted by the city council, and it was implemented in Brooklyn Park. And it's a mixed housing ordinance, and what that allows the city to do is that for now on, whenever a new developer or an existing developer wants to redevelop a building or build a multifamily building, they'll have to have affordable housing in it. They cannot escape it, so they must have affordable housing, and they're provided with 3 different choices of affordable housing that they can produce. And so this ensures that there will always be affordable housing in the city of Brooklyn Park, and we hope to keep on expanding this work and passing these ordinances at state level pretty much, so that we can ensure that affordable housing doesn't go anywhere and people can live wherever they want to, right? Because at the end of the day, housing is a human right. It's not a choice or something nice, or we all deserve to have a roof over our head, especially with the Minnesota cold outside, right? So yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
So I think we can go to question and answer period, where it's fantastic to have 4 folks doing really different kinds of work, broadly representative of the kind of work that Asamblea does, and we've got them here for conversation. So I've got the mic, and I'll give it to you when you raise your hand.
Kind of a basic question for Sebastian. Do you have a lot of luck with working with city councils in different parts of city administration, or do they kind of put up a front like, nope, we don't want to help you? Because I can imagine that.
That's a tricky question. It depends. It depends on how much pressure they have from the residents. It depends how racist they are. A lot of times, a lot of these people have their own personal biases, and therefore they're gonna, ride out with that. But as an organizer, lobbying is pretty important. Therefore, the best strategy is to have one-on-ones with the council members, have a relationship, and then we always make sure that whenever we're creating a relationship with the city council members, we have community members with us, so that they can see who they're representing, they can see who they're talking about. So in case of you want to discriminate against undocumented people, well, here's an undocumented family that you can discriminate directly if you want to. That kind of shuts them up a lot of times. But putting the community forward it's a must, and that kind of neutralizes their BS. But at times they're gonna vote against it, and that's just the way it is. Thank you for that.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I think something that's important, I think, in the Brooklyns and in a lot of these stories is what are we learning and what is our understanding of power? And so I think for a lot of folks, they think, well, being on a city council, having a title and a position, like that's power, right? I can make decisions today, that are gonna be affecting people's livelihoods for generations to come. And we saw that in the Brooklyns. We saw a really weak, watered-down resolution just saying we welcome immigrants in our city. And it got so sucked up into the politics that it was like, oh, well, this is too controversial, and as a city council, we can't be wading into politics, right? It was like this excuse that they're making. About a year and a half before Sebastian started organizing, the city of Brooklyn Park had actually joined like a federal lawsuit making this ridiculous claim that we have too much affordable housing in our city. Right, like looking at affordable housing as a burden, because like housing is proxy for race. So when you're saying we have too much affordable housing, like what you're really saying is we have too many people of color in our city. So they had sort of passed unanimously, like, to be part of this federal, HUD complaint to basically say zero affordable housing will be built in the city. After a year and a half of organizing, a lot of pressure, a lot of phone calls, power isn't just what you can decide on any given day. Power can also be built over time through organized people, through organized money. We flipped both of those votes. So into a unanimous resolution supporting welcoming immigrants and refugees in the city, and a unanimous vote for the mixed-use housing policy. So it speaks to it's not, we can't just surrender our destinies to the system. Like, we need to build power and resist the structures that oppress.
And I would like to add that mixed housing policy completely, like 100% contradicts their first statement of having too much affordable housing, and that was done in like 3 years. So it flips. It says that for now on we're going to have affordable housing. So.
And then as a follow-up, obviously, like, you seem to have been able to create good relationships with city council. How do the citizens of Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center react? Because I'm from that general area, and I know that people are less than friendly sometimes.
That's pretty interesting. So it depends. I think it's a bit mixed. But overall, I've realized that the immigrant communities in Brooklyn Park are really tight and really loving. And most of them, most of these immigrants are law-abiding citizens that really want to obey by the system. Therefore, they feel pretty joyous and pretty happy about the fact that, they have support from their council members. But at times you have residents that will come and will just start yelling at them, and and tell them what's up. Because it's true. I mean, you have these city council members that have power, right, to change things, but at the same time, you have thousands of people that are paying extremely high rents with these really crappy conditions, with heavy pressure from police, and so it's an aggravating lifestyle that you want to get out of. So yeah, definitely kind of mix.
Okay, so I had a similar question for Maria Elena in Cold Spring. When you met with the mayor, did you just call up the mayor and he agreed immediately to meet, or did you have to persuade him? Were the city council members also willing to meet? I'm interested to know how the meeting took place in the first place.
He came right away, and the first time we called him, we know that he's new, and like he was like probably 2-3 years that he's been the mayor, and we have the association and the mobile home. So one of the association members, he called him and he said yes, he can meet with us. He said that he can meet with us for 30 minutes, but he stayed longer, and because he heard the testimonies of the people, and he said that he will bring the answer later after he check what is happening, and the reason I said he will check after he know what is the answer, because they pay the bills not to the city, they pay the bills to the manager or the owner of the mobile home park. So the bills come from the city, but they pay the bills to the owner of the mobile home park. We have the answer right away, so he came with us. He came and tell that we gotta meet with a person from the city council, from the utilities bills. So yeah. the response was right away.
Other questions?
I have a question for Mr. Sebastian. So with the mixed housing ordinance in the context of the Blue Line being built, will those new housing, is there any work being done with the new housing that has to be built to surround that Blue Line to include the responsibilities and now regulations that new housing needs to be affordable? Is that being included in those new apartments being built?
Yeah, actually, we were super lucky to pass an ordinance that will kind of go in place right away and will be affecting new buildings. There's a new development that's currently going on in Brooklyn Park. I believe they've settled with like 550 units. So in those 500 units, there will be, I believe 15% of them will be affordable housing, which is awesome. And yeah, and when it comes to redevelopment near the Blue Line or just throughout the city, they must have affordable housing. And I think that's really where we win there, because a lot of times, a lot of these developers or owners will ask the city to give some funding for maybe doing the roofs, or they have some heating problems, so they need to get new heating systems and things like that. And therefore, if they're asking money from the city, they need to implement the mixed housing ordinance. And so that's, yeah, it's pretty cool. We're gonna start picking people on.
I do have a question. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit just to kind of the practical day-to-day of organizing and the kinds of obstacles that you encounter. 'Cause your work is part advocacy but largely empowerment, right? And I imagine that there are significant obstacles to getting people to stand up for themselves, right, given the circumstances they're in. I wonder if you could speak a little bit to just the practical challenges that Asamblea has to solve in order to have these, victory stories.
Well, yeah, it's difficult to bring people to organize because in the situation of Latinos, they are afraid. They are afraid to talk, to tell what is happening. Many of them are undocumented, and it's why they feel like if they talk, they are gonna be targeted. And we are been organizing like in Cold Spring, and many of them are. If we tell them, you can talk, you can say to testimony, you are gonna be safe. They tell you the testimony, they tell you what is happening. But if they don't feel safe, if somebody go from different place and they don't know the person, they are not gonna say anything. So it's hard for that way to organize. Because the situation, because the police, hard because they don't have the driver license to go to the place. Like example, we have our meetings in St. Joseph's Church in Way Park, and to go people from Cold Spring to go there, for them they feel like. For them, they feel better that if we go to the mobile home park. They don't care if we do the meeting on their home. They feel better if we do on their home. But we feel like they has to go out. They has to um, educate themselves and learn more about their rights and keep fighting, because this work is not easy. I've been here from like 12 years working. I start with saying I wasn't know anything about, and now that I feel, because many trainings and many things, I feel like more secure. I wasn't able to understand the language either 12 years ago. I was all the time to do something, I was asking my daughter to help me or translate it. And I think that is one of the barriers too, because they don't know, they know what you said if you speak in English, but they don't know, it's hard to answer. And that is one of the things that make us hard to organize.
I would like to add a few things. Like Elena was saying, well, first of all, I think it's a bit difficult to organize ourselves first, right? We have a lot of difficulties and issues at times at organizational level, and but like Elena was saying, we train a lot. That's really the way that we keep our minds kind of fresh, and really we need to know politics, we need to know social behaviors, we need to know what's going on. Even with kids, at times we need to know what's going on with what's popular with kids, right? But I think, well, knowing self-interest of yourself and others, it's really, really important. Because in a lot of times we sit down and have one-to-ones with people that want to get involved, so that we can find out their self-interest and kind of base their empowerment and base their future work from that. What is it? What's impacting you? What do you want to change? And a lot of times there are people that are so deep in these bad conditions, and they've been beaten down by the system so much that it's difficult. They're in shackles. It's difficult to free them mentally first from these struggles, and then of course in their daily life. But it's tough. We all work 2 jobs, and like a lot, like 60 hours sometimes. But speaking for myself, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for all of us here, this is a call for us. This is a God-made call to fight for justice and for empowering our community. Therefore, we do it.
I think just to add, and this is also an economic justice point, that it really is like a David and Goliath fight, and that's true in terms of resources as well. At any given point in the debate, you hear about 10 billion for a wall and 20 billion. ICE isn't like this volunteer army, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar agency whose basically sole purpose is aimed at the destruction and division of members of our community, for whom it seems that there's unlimited resources. And just in thinking about the few resources I think that are available for this type of community work, I think about the words of a Brazilian priest that asked this question, if I feed the poor, I'm called a saint. If I ask why they're poor, I'm called a communist, or maybe to update that today, I'm called a terrorist. And so, like, when it comes to the reality is that we need resources, to carry on the struggle, whether it's sending, buses to DC, whether that's providing food, printing flyers, paying our organizers. We recognize that one of the things that we need to do is to be able to bring in those resources to finance our own liberation. But obviously that's a challenge given that there's a constant pipeline from the state to fuel our adversaries. A lot of times what a landlord might collect in 1 month's rent might be equivalent to like our budget, in the entire year, but we're there to be David. We're a loaves and fishes organization that makes a lot based on the resources that we have in order to continue to advance our struggle for what's right.
Other questions?
I have a question for Bob. The taxes that you mentioned for families, depending on the number of children that they have, do those are those numbers changing at all, or do they fluctuate? And if they do, how so?
The number, the earned income credit and the child tax credit in the past have just increased by a few dollars each year in each category. It's not a big change. It's just relating to the cost of living. But there is a change in the new tax law. The $1,000 child tax credit becomes $2,000, and it has that 15% limitation in there, so you only can get it if you have enough money to get it. Like the $41,000 for 3 children, $54,000 for 4 children. You have to have the money in order to get the full credit. To me, that's the wrong way to go. The people who need it are the ones that are not being paid well to begin with. Just an example of that. A couple things in terms of taxes. There's people who claim the undocumented don't pay taxes. If they don't file taxes, they actually pay more tax than anybody who files in most cases, because they don't get any refunds, they don't get anything back that they've had withheld, so they usually wind up paying more tax than anybody who files. If you file with an ITIN, an individual tax identification number, instead of a social security number, you don't get the child tax, you don't get the earned income credit now, and next year you're not going to get earned income credit or child tax credit if either parent has an ITIN. So that's a big penalty. We had a situation a number of years ago where Minnesota said, we want the people who are undocumented to be as legal as possible. So we'd like to do this ITIN presentation. And we had a fella come down from someplace up north with the intent of trying to pay taxes so that he'd be as legal as possible. When we got done doing his tax returns for 4 years, which is all we could do, the present plus the previous 3, he had over $42,600 coming in refunds because he was filing, and he was coming down with the anticipation that he was going to pay tax and try and be as legal as possible. And he had been here for 10 years at the same kind of job with somewhat close to the same wages. So in the previous 6 years, my estimate is somewhere around $50,000 was left with the IRS and the state of Minnesota because he hadn't been filing. He didn't know how to file. He came down with the intentions of trying to file so that he'd be as legal as possible, and he wound up with $42,600 some dollars in refunds. So when people say the undocumented don't file taxes, if they don't file, they actually pay more tax in most cases than if they do file. And if they do file, they pay more taxes than the citizens. So that's just one of those things that kind of irritates me.
So to follow up on the work in paying the income and paying tax, could you talk about the kinds of work that immigrants do, especially here in central Minnesota? Farm work, factory work, what other kinds of things do they do, and what contributions do they make to the economy through their work?
Most of the people that I've done taxes for are the farm labor, the packing plants, chickens, turkeys, beef and pork. Those are the types of jobs that most of them work at, and most of the U.S. citizens will not take those jobs. If we don't have these undocumented workers, or if these people are not willing to work, we're going to be hungry, because they do most of our farm work and most of our packing plant work in central Minnesota. And like I said, there was a indication that it's about 70% or more of all of the farm workers in this country are undocumented. If you deport 70% of that labor force, we're going to starve to death. Or if you can afford it, you're going to pay extremely high prices for your food.
We've got time for a couple more questions. I have one. I shouldn't let you off the hook like that, but I will this once. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit also to the kind of actions, maybe organizing work, but also just actions of other folks, right? That intersects with the work of Asamblea and makes certain kinds of gains possible. And I'm thinking of things like local media, their responsiveness or non-responsiveness to things, citizen journalism, student activism, stuff like that. I raise this in part because Cold Spring is right next door, right? I had a student a few years ago who produced a mural in Cold Spring in collaboration with the local community, which was a beautiful piece of work. It was destroyed in a freak bus accident last year. Not sure how that happened, but the image of the playground kind of took me aback because that particular image she had included in the mural, right? And so a certain experience of that community's conditions and their sort of hopes and dreams was made public by this other project, right? She wasn't a member of Asamblea, wasn't really thinking about Asamblea's work, but was doing work, right, of a kind. So I wonder if you guys could speak to that a little bit.
I can start. In the Brooklyns, for example, we partnered up with an African organization called ACER, or African Career Education, Inc., to be able to organize the huge African community that's there, and also to bring together the Latino and African communities because they have very similar immigration issues, housing issues, and economic downfalls, I guess, living in the system. And often these two communities are being divided or are purposely divided by the system too. Therefore, that was a really good partnering opportunity that we had there. I don't know, we could talk here for that.
Organize, organize, organize is what I say. You know, on campus, in your communities of faith, find, you know, like-minded people that share your values, and you know, find out what are some of the issues that you're passionate about, that you care about, and start putting members of Congress, city council members on your phone. Put them on speed dial. Call them every day, often, whether that's demanding a Clean Dream Act, whether that's talking to local representatives about some of these housing issues. A lot of times, like, change at the local level is critical. You know, I've seen it before where just something like getting 5 to 10 people to show up to a city council meeting is like a revolution to folks, you know, because it's like those so many day in, day outs, those seats just sit empty. and no one's there at those meetings speaking out about the issues that they care about. We have some pretty pink postcards that provide some specific opportunities for something just right now that Glass is going to talk about.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. So yeah, actually, I thank you, Bruce, for saying that, because actually we are doing a call to action tomorrow. What's tomorrow, everybody? And Ash Wednesday. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's Valentine's Day. So we actually have these lovely Valentine's Day cards. Who knows much about DACA? Raise your hand if you know about DACA. Kind of heard of. Okay. All right. So DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival. That means that kids who were brought to the United States undocumented are able to get this status in order to pursue a higher education, go to school, contribute to our economy, pay taxes, make this America great, right? Yeah. So tomorrow we will be having this action. We have these Valentine's Day cards, and it says, share God's love, don't break our hearts, pass a Clean Dream Act now. So tomorrow we will be going to Tom Emmer's office, who is our Congress District Representative, Tina Smith, and Amy Klobuchar, who are our senators. So if you guys could please sign 3 of these lovely Valentine's Day cards, that would be great. We have some, so I can pass them out. Also, tomorrow we will be going, like I said, to these 3 different offices from like 7 in the morning. We'll be back here by 12. So if you're interested in coming, I have room in my car to take you, and I promise I will feed you. So yeah, talk to me afterwards, and I'll start passing these out. 3 per person, please.